Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omni video. Today we're going to do a character guide on Amidatelion. So I feel like it's been forever since Amidatellion's been back and like relevant. So Amidatelion comes back here with their C90. The big thing for those of you unfamiliar with Amidatelion, they were the first character that came out that could actually delete turns, and that's pretty much what they're based around. They do have a bit of gravity as well, which is fairly useful, right? So first we'll go ahead and we'll start by looking at the calls. Amidatellion's call is actually one of the more common calls I've used in the game. Comet doesn't do anything too crazy. It does do a nice turn rate down debuff, and Amidatelion will pop in and do like a few debuffs all at once. So it is good for just like, so the call's been useful for two things. Actually, three things. Three things it's useful for. One is if you just need to throw a bunch of debuffs down. There have been fights in the past where like the bosses, like you have to have a certain amount of debuffs on them, otherwise they get really nasty. Amidatellion's good for that because they pop in and they put like 3 debuffs on right away, which is good. So having debuffs. The other thing is you get gravity and you also get turn deletion. Okay, now you don't get gravity or turn deletion on Comet, but the big one is the LD. So this is going to delete all enemies' turns. So it is an enemy-wide turn delete, which is absolutely insane. This can be useful, one, just if you're really in trouble, you know you can't survive a hit, you can pop this call off, save yourself another turn to set up for whatever you have to do. It's also very useful if like you really want to do a launch, but the enemies are interrupting so you can't attack with all 3 characters. Well, you can pop this, delete turns, and then you're free to launch, right? This also does an Brave down on the enemies, but the big thing is that it is going to 100% gravity and delete all their turns. So a very good call for Amidatelion, still a very, very useful call, right? Not to say that you should summon for Amidatellion's call, but it's a call that I have used quite a bit myself, and I do really enjoy it. Alright, let's go ahead and, before I get too crazy here, I was just about to hop into a fight, let's actually look at Amidatelion. We got to look at their artifacts and their spheres, right? So for artifacts in Amidatelion, I think there's a few ways you could go with this character. I would say Attack 108 would be your primary one, but then for the second one, you have a couple options. You could do Mysterious Uke Up, which is going to increase Brave and Max Brave, which is good. Or you could do Attack 108 Max Brave 330. Or I think Attack 108 and Brave 170 could work. Brave has got a little bit more importance than Amidatelion because they do a lot of battery. And that battery scales a little bit more heavily off of Brave. So Brave I think is a little bit more useful, but I would say probably Attack 108 Max Brave or Attack 108 in the C50. Probably Attack 108 in the C50 because you're getting Brave and Max Brave with that, right? So that's probably the way I would go. I still have to finish building mine out. It's actually, like, literally I haven't, like, focused on Amidatelion, like, in the party since their initial LD release, right? Which is a really long time. Otherwise, Amidatelion has pretty much just been a call for me. So for the spheres, a few ways you can go here again as well. I would say on the A slot, you want to focus on attack and then Max Brave and Brave. So any of those stats or any combination of those stats. I felt like X-Death was a pretty easy one because Amidatelion is built as a debuffing character. So the enemies are always going to be debuffed. So you're just going to attack up while they're debuffed. That's a really just easy one to activate with Amidatelion. Probably not their best in slot, right? Their best in slot would be something that would be a combo of attack with Max Brave or attack and Brave. And I do believe there are a few out there that work. For the C slot, this is another kind of tricky one because a lot of the C slots, to activate them, you have to heal, and Amidatelion doesn't heal, right? But if you can get something that just boosts party attack, or even better, party attack and Brave, so I think Alphanod is the one that jumps out to me. So if I go down to Alphanod here, I think Alphanod is probably the best in slot here. Let me go ahead and find it right here. I am all out of Alphanods, but this is a party Brave and attack. So I would say, and this is just after granting a buff, which Amidatelion does have a few attacks where they grant a buff, okay? It's not like every button, but often enough that you're going to get this. So I would say Amidatellion's probably best in slot here. But I think having some utility, like putting Theodore on to give Amidatelion healing, sure, I just threw that on because I had a lot of extras, right? Then in the E slot, Amidatellion's is actually like probably one of the best ones for themselves, but I don't have any extras. But this is going to be a nice battery based on Brave. So I think Amidatelion is a great spot to put their own spheres on themselves. I think that's a very, very good one there, right? You don't want to do any that apply a debuff because Amidatellion's already doing a lot of debuffs, and you don't want to be too cloggy. The one I would say big flaw with Amidatelion is because they do so many debuffs, it's hard to team comp because you're going to run out of debuff slots really quick if you're not careful. So don't add on more debuffs because you don't want to eat up more debuff slots, if that makes sense. You could do something like Fujin or Ferris, which are aura based, right? So I went with Fujin because this is going to be an aura based poison, which I think is actually quite useful. So I went ahead and did Ferris. I think Ferris is a very good one. Yuffie and Kefka is if you want to do more stat boosting like attack. You could go with Yuffie or Kefka there. But I kind of like Ferris. I threw Ferris on there. So alright, let's go ahead and hop into the fight. This should be a pretty short showcase. Amidatelion is just a base LD character. Very, very simple kit. Shouldn't be too complicated to explain, right? Alright, so we'll hop in. With Amidatelion, there is not a specific turn order you want to do. You just want to basically upkeep your debuffs. Now, Amidatelion has 3 powerful debuffs, and they're going to be there at quest start. So we got turn rate down, defense down, and speed down. The turn rate down, I would say, is the most significant one, because it's going to really slow down the enemy's turns and give you more turns, which is kind of what Amidatellion's there to help you do, right? Amidatelion, as either in the party or as a call or as a friend unit, Amidatelion used to be like the best friend unit, by the way, is a great strat for like no turning bosses. So if you want a character that's going to allow you to beat the boss without them getting turns, Amidatellion's going to help, right? So we'll just start with a heal here. I definitely want a quick prayer Amidatelion because they are a fairly slow character. So I just want to like grab a couple turns right away with Amidatelion. So let's go ahead and do that. Sure. And then I'll just attack through. I don't need to like go crazy and do an LD here or anything. Alright, so we'll just kind of go through Amidatellion's attacks. So the big one is the LD. So the LD is Crystal Idol, and the big thing that does is it deletes all the turns. So you'll watch on the little turn screen there where you see the B and the A. We're going to press Crystal Idol, and they're just going to get obliterated off the map. Okay, so turns deleted, and now look, I've set myself up with a bunch of turns in a row. So that's very powerful. Now, you only get 3 uses of that, so it's a little bit limited. But basically, it is a 100% gravity. So no matter what their Brave is at, it's going to set it to 0. And then you're going to go ahead and attack through. Okay? And then it gives themselves a resurrection buff. So this is going to be kind of like the auras. So you do want to keep that up. The nice thing is that this buff is 15 turns. So they understand you don't get a lot of skill uses. So you kind of want to make sure that you just keep that resurrection buff up. It's party attack up, brave damage up, HP damage up, I brave up, brave regen up, and overflow up. And this is a stackable buff. So I believe every time Amidatelion takes a turn, it's going to stack. So getting that stacked up is just going to improve all the numbers on that right there, right? So that's basically it for the LB. And then it does do an I brave down on the enemy. So that added an extra debuff now to the enemies. So that's the LD, okay? Next we'll look at Comet. Comet is kind of just like your filler move. So we can do Comet here. Does Brave gains in between, decent little bit of damage there. Gives themselves the Yuke's Hope buff, which is just an attack up and max Brave up. And then the party gets Brave regen, which scales on I Brave and an I Brave up. So this is the one little piece where it's like, yeah, you could go with a little bit of I Brave there because it's going to help the party Brave regen, which is part of Amidatellion's game, right? Is that party regen. Then let's go ahead and do Mega Flare. Mega Flare now you have 8 skill uses of, and this is where you can really get a lot of Amidatelion in the party, is this is a single turn delete, so it's only going to delete 1 enemy, but you have 8 turns of it, right? So if Amidatelion keeps coming up, I mean, you can really delete a lot of turns. So the thing with Amidatelion is you do sacrifice a lot of power compared to other characters, right? But you are getting good battery, you are getting some okay auras, some decent support, and you are allowing the party to, like, basically just no-turn the boss. Because you can see here, I can very easily just Mega Flare again. And we can almost get it to the point where we don't even see an enemy turn on the screen, right? So you can just see all the turns we're banking. So the reason why turn deletion is so rare is because it is very powerful. Like, I don't think anyone would deny how powerful turn deletion is. Now, there are bosses that do, like, bosses with framed turns can't be turn deleted. So that is something to keep in mind. But it's not as common as you would think. I'd say for the most part, turn deletion is fine. Also, you have to keep in mind, there are bosses that at thresholds will jump turns, and it doesn't matter how much you delete them, they're going to get their turns. So that's the other reason why, like, Amidatelion isn't just like a god that everybody runs. There are definitely flaws to their kit, and there are flaws to the fight that make Amidatelion maybe not as good, right? Let's go ahead and pop the EX here. So Comet, by the way, that does turn rate down, and then the Mega Flare, which I showed, did defense down and speed down, right? But we'll show Comet. I don't think I actually did Comet. Well, I must have done Comet because it's down to 11. Yeah, and I went over the Uke's Hope. So yeah, that does turn rate down. So those 3 starter turn buffs, that comes from the 15 and 35, right? So we just popped the EX. So this did an AoE full attack, which is pretty good, and then Brave Gains, but that's it. So the EX doesn't really have a lot packed in it. It doesn't add any extra buffs or anything like that, right? Let's go and swap turns again into Amidatelion. Now, here's the thing that's very important about Amidatelion, okay? The AA restores 2 skill uses of skill 1 and skill 2. You only get 1 use of it, but that's 2 extra skill uses. So you can use that, and that's going to help your party with Brave Gains as well. And you see Mega Flare's back up to 8, Comet's back up to 12, so now I can go in and start deleting turns again. And that's basically it. You just delete turns and upkeep your buffs. And really that LD, you just save it for when you really want to delete a couple of turns, right? I'm just going to HP attack here. Now the other thing is, depending on what the enemy's Brave is, we may or may not really be able to see it here. Let's go and pop this. One thing that Amidatelion... Oh, shoot. That would have been perfect, but then Rem went and broke them. The one thing that Amidatelion does have in their back pocket is, like I said, the LD does do gravity, but the Brave and HP++ are also gravity attacks. Now, they don't do any Brave attacks with it, so they won't actually break the enemy. But if you need, like, an on-the-spot gravity, and the HP+, I believe, is a 50% gravity, but then you get a dump with it. The Brave one, I think, is a 70% gravity. So the Brave one is more powerful of a gravity, but the HP one you'll see here, it's basically would just absorb, do a gravity, and then do an attack. Not crazy powerful, but if you need a quick on-the-spot gravity, it's something you can do, right? You swap back into Amidatelion, and then obviously with like turn shenanigans and stuff, you can bring Amidatelion up and go crazy. The thing with Amidatelion in a Shinryu fight, if you don't want them to burn out, right, you're gonna want... I want to do the EX again. I didn't actually see the damage we did. I'm kind of curious to see 90 damage here. I wasn't looking at my screen. Okay, 600k, that's solid. So, I mean, they definitely brought Amidatellion's damage up to par, I would say. It's not like amazing, crazy, you know, it's not Tifa damage. But Amidatelion has a very specific role, which is gravity, Brave Gain, turn delete, which is very good, right? So if you have Amidatelion, they are a great character to have. I think they're a good utility character to have in your back pocket. Not a must pull. Like they were on LD release, you would almost argue they were a must pull. They were so busted when they came out. Right now, you definitely can live without Amidatelion. If you get them, I think their call is very useful. Once again, you just pop that, delete out the turns, and you're good to go. So anyways, guys, there you go. That's Amidatelion. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you all on the next one.